Hello again. Good afternoon and welcome to our monthly webcast update. I'm Ursula. I'm your host of today. Before we start, some housekeeping. Please put yourself on mute to avoid background noise. If you have any questions or remarks, just drop them in the chat functionality. We will answer them right away after the presentation. The webinar will be recorded and sent out to you afterwards. Your speakers today are William van Voorthuizen and Chris Sparks, and I would like to hand over directly to William. William, are you ready?
Yes, thanks, Ursula. Welcome, everybody, to the Dynamics 365 update webcast from my side, the April version. My name is William van Voorthuizen. Most of you will know me as the monthly speaker regarding the Dynamics 365 Business Central news every month. And I would like to share some topics with you. And after that, I will hand it over to Chris with some updates regarding Dynamics 365 in general and or the Power Platform. That's the agenda for today's session. For the Business Central parts, this is the agenda. A short look back at the launch event, especially on the focus areas, the new announcements, because you all know the release plan for the April version of Business Central was already launched 2 or 3 months ago. So most of the new features and functionalities were already covered in earlier webcasts, and you could also read them, of course, at the Microsoft Information. Please mute yourself. After that, I would like to cover some news around the Delegated Admin, Business Central Virtual Tables, other BC news, and last but not least, the new announcement from Microsoft regarding the Business Central Publisher Program, which is very relevant for partners and ISVs having solutions already on our app source or not yet. Then it's really interesting news for you. First, April 13, we had the Business Central launch event with a live keynote and a live Q&A session. All the sessions were pre-recorded. There are some very interesting sessions to watch, and some of them are not launched yet. They will launch later on, and Microsoft promised to make us aware of the fact when those will be launched, and otherwise we will do as well. And if you have a look back at the focus areas, then it all drops down to onboarding, better together with Microsoft, the platform, and of course functionality and feature enhancements of the product itself. But first, onboarding, which is very relevant, and Microsoft explained why it's relevant. And they say, okay, it's relevant for the customers because they want to have a better startup experience. They would love to use the product straight out of the box as far as possible, of course, and they need to get the value of Business Central faster. And also they should really start using the product and learn by going through the product itself. And then the benefit for partner would be that, okay, if we make onboarding faster and more simple from the Microsoft perspective, then we help partners by scale their onboardings of the customers so they can onboard more customers in the same time. What they don't say, but that's of course behind the message, is that Microsoft really wants to ramp up the sales, of course, but also the implementations and migrations to Business Central SaaS. So they think, okay, let's put effort from our side in it as well. So let onboarding, let's make it faster and easier, so that we don't have to rely on all the consultant hours which need to be performed by the consultants of Microsoft, of the partners, sorry. Please mute yourself. So the onboarding vision of Microsoft is okay. In the past, we had the consultant in the implementation phase, which delivers the assistance. And the future of Microsoft would be that users can finalize and do the setup themselves. And of course, it's the straightforward setups with not that much impact on the overall configuration of Business Central, because we all could imagine that it doesn't make sense to let the end users make changes to the general posting setup and the matrix of all the posting groups, because if they start with the product, they don't know what's the consequence of making changes, for example. And in the idea of Microsoft, there should be a change from the partner billable hours. We sell implementation with the bulk of hours, and that should be transformed into IP so that partners can sell it their knowledge as IP. And instead of training which needs to be done by the partner, users should learn from the product itself. And of course, this is the ideal world. It's a vision of Microsoft, and we all know that for the partners, there's will be still lots of work to do. And the two things they added to Business Central, of course, we already start with the interview about the processes within the company. We have the configuration packages, the setups, the manual setups. That's already we are familiar with. They now have added the getting started checklist, presented on the role center, where users can finish some setups. And of course, that's very simple setups for now, but at least it's a start from Microsoft. And it's good to know that they presented it also as a framework, so that you as a partner or an ISV can make use of it and onboard your visits more or less within that framework. And next to that, the teaching tips and the tools. Maybe you are familiar in your country as well with some local heroes. They are great in product tools. Especially we do have them in the Netherlands. And Microsoft is going to show users what's on a page, what could you do on this page just by a guided tour around the page, and also teaching tips on what could you do with some actions. So the onboarding checklist, like I mentioned before, is presented at the role center, and the teaching tips basically do two things. What's this page about, and what can I do with this page? And so, for example, if you have a list with sales orders, okay, what's in this list? Why it's in this list, a sales order. When it's posted, it will be moved to posted sales invoices and so on. And what can I do with this page will guide the user on the actions regarding sales orders, for example, on how to ship them and etc. That's for the focus area onboarding, where Microsoft focused on in the keynote. And better together with Microsoft is, of course, better integration with Teams, Microsoft Dataverse, which I will come back to in a minute, and of course a lot of features. There were two things which were really new at the launch event, and that was the changes they've made to the database storage, and also the possibility to schedule minor updates next to the major updates, the 2 updates in a year, where you were able to schedule them. Now it will be a launch for minor updates as well. So that's great news for us as partners. And Microsoft started regarding the database storage with the message, okay, first we started with, you have only 80 gigabytes of database storage. So you had to make investments in creating smaller databases with SQL compression, retention policies, and so on. They said, okay, that was just education of the people, which is still relevant. But of course, now they have made changes to the plan, so you can have a lot more storage in the same situations. So here's the overview, just as a summary. Maybe the majority of you already have seen something like this. But with the new storage plan, you get still 80 gigabytes as a base entitlement. And then on top of that, you get a per user allocation. So per full user, an essential user, either a premium user, you get 2 gigabytes or 3 gigabytes on top of that per user. And if that's still not enough, then the additional gigabytes you can purchase, they drop the price significantly from $40 a month to $10. And if you buy them in bulk, it will drop down to $5 a month. And they showed some examples to convince us as the partners that it's a really good move from Microsoft and that it will fit in the majority of all the cases. Of course, there's still will be some exceptions, but most of the cases this should be enough. Also, please keep in mind that if you look at, for example, the current database size of an on-prem situation, in SaaS it's always compressed. So if you have, for example, a 120 or 130 gigabytes on-prem database, that will drop down to, for example, 70 or 80 gigabytes in Business Central SaaS because of decompression. But even then, and they showed some examples. Let me guide you to the first one. If you have a deal with 30 essential users of Business Central, then you have, of course, the 80 gigabytes, which is the base entitlement. And on top of that, 30 times, because 30 users, the 2 gigabytes as an additional storage, which comes to 140 gigabytes. And like I said before, of course, there still will be a lot of exceptions possible, that it's still not enough, but then at least the prices were dropped significantly for additional storage. Then the scheduling of the minor updates. We are all familiar with the timeline for major updates. For example, this month on April 1st, they launched Business Central 18. And basically, the last day you can schedule the update is 30 days later. Already last year, we've seen that they've extended the time window from 30 days to 60 days. That's also applicable for this release. So basically, you have 2 months to schedule the actual update. Little side note, maybe you've also got some emails that Microsoft already postponed the update in some regions. For what I've seen, at least over here in West Europe, they've postponed a lot of updates, and also in the New Zealand region I've seen. The idea here is that Microsoft won't communicate what the reason is. So it could be a bug or performance by updating all those tenants at the same time. We really don't know. But it makes sense to have a look at your scheduled updates and maybe reschedule them, and then let's see what happens. Okay, but then back to the new feature, scheduling the minor updates. So next month we will get 18.1. You will get a mail that the update is available for your environment. And as you might know, you need to be a notification recipient in the Business Central admin center of your end customers to get those emails for those specific tenants. When you receive that email, you have 7 days to schedule the minor update. And so you have 7 days to schedule it, and then you can choose a date within 3 weeks to perform the actual update. That's of course great news. So we have influence as a partner on when the update will happen. And of course you can schedule sandbox environments prior to production. You can test you're able to test the minor updates on the sandbox before you update the production environment. And this new feature will roll out in US starting with 18.1 and in the other regions, so applicable for West Europe as well. It will start with the version of 18.2. And then Microsoft made a little side note as an off the record that this feature was not announced earlier. As we know, they hadn't the intention to do it, but based on the feedback of a lot of partners which were complaining about that we as a partner did not have any influence on when the minor update would happen. So Microsoft thought about it and said, okay, let's give it a try and give the power to the partners to schedule the minor updates as well. But they said it will be a test first to see how partners will cooperate with this, because in the end Microsoft of course wants to have all the tenants updated as soon as possible. So we get 3 weeks. Please schedule them within those 3 weeks, and then if we do everything as Microsoft requested from us, then maybe they will keep this feature. Then the highlights, like I mentioned before, the release plan is already launched for several months now. Most of them I already covered in earlier webcasts, but just to summarize some important new features. And one of the things we also got a lot of questions for from you as a partner is, for example, the first one, that from now on you're able to reassign an environment from one Azure Active Directory organization to another. So if a company is acquired or whatever the reason could be, you're able to move a Business Central tenant to another Azure Active Directory. It's not something you can do as a partner on your own. You need to raise a support request at Microsoft Support, and then they will do it for you. And one of the requirements is that you as a partner are the delegated admin. And if you're a partner for Business Central SaaS, you're delegated admin anyway, in both the old Azure Active Directory as the new one where you would like to be the Business Central tenant move to. Integration with Microsoft Teams. Of course, nowadays it's a little bit basic, but you could imagine that this will enhance and expand over time. Word merge is a great new feature, although we also have, of course, some apps in AppSource which will do the same or even better or with some more functionality. But it's good to know that Microsoft added in Business Central as a standard feature. Universal print, great example. Corrections of dimensions. The virtual tables, I will come back to that later on in this session. But they always, of course, show some figures about the performance improvements they have made. But it's good to know that Microsoft is working on it, that Business Central SaaS will feel as fast as possible for the end users. Report extensibility is a good one, where we are able to extend those reports by making use of a specific extension objects they have launched for that. And last, I would like to highlight is the improvements of the delegated admin, which I will cover in a few minutes as well. There it already is. As a delegated admin, so you are the reseller of an end customer, you're able to go to the tenant of that end customer via the partner center, and then you will be logged in as a delegated admin in the Business Central tenant. And although you have super permission rights within the tenant of the end customer, because you're a delegated admin, you're not able to do everything in the tenant. So for example, you're not able to run, pause, or restart a job queue. And for us as a partner, of course, it's crucial to see if a job queue you just created, if that works before you hand that job queue over to a customer, or restart a job queue when something has happened and the job queue has been broken. So starting with Business Central 18, you as a delegated admin, you can pause a job queue which is scheduled, restart a failed one, and you can run a job queue one time for one full cycle to check if everything works. And it's good to know that the job queues should still run on the name of a licensed user. So every job queue needs to be run via a licensed user, but you as a delegated admin are able to, like I said, pause, restart, or run a job queue. Restart a failed one is not available right out of the box with Business Central 18. They will launch it in a later manner. Not sure if it will be 18.1 or 18.2 or whatever, but it's good to know that that functionality will be launched a little later on. Then Business Central Virtual Tables. It's a new feature, and you basically could see the Business Central Virtual Tables as a data provider in Dataverse, so the old common data service. With that, you're able to create, read, update, and delete data within in Business Central tables. And because it's virtual, no data will be synchronized to Dataverse, so it stays in Business Central. It's very easy to set up by installing the app from App Source, and then you're able to generate those virtual tables in Dataverse. And also, good to know, you're able to create relationships between native tables and virtual tables. Let me explain that with the following situation. On the left, you see Dataverse. On the right, you see Business Central. And for example, with the synchronization which is available, you can sync actual data, for example, the customer in Business Central with the accounts in Dataverse. But for the sales order in Business Central, you can create a virtual table. So in Dataverse, sales order will be visual but it's just a virtual table. The data stays in Business Central. But it gives the opportunity to create Power Apps, for example, making use of this data in the Dataverse, where you can just create logic or whatever, making use of the sales order data, where it's still only stored within Business Central. And with the relationships I mentioned before, you're able to create a relationship between a native table and a virtual table. You can now work with sales orders, with sales order lines within Dataverse, keeping the data in Business Central. Then something else. Microsoft plans to support the direct migrations from on-prem to Business Central 18, like they did with Business Central 17 before. So basically, you can jump straight to Business Central 18 from either Business Central 14, 15, 16, or 17. It's good to know that that's not available yet. It will start with the minor update of version 18.1. And for the time being, Microsoft suggests to complete the migration to version 17 first, and then upgrade it online afterwards to version 18, as you're still able to schedule that one. Then some news around the application builder and the solution developer, already communicated broadly in the channel a few weeks ago. For Business Central on-premise, the application builder and the solution developer will be removed from the price list. It will now be included within the Business Central Essentials and Premium licenses. So Microsoft explained it as, okay, it's in line with our complete move to AL and Visual Studio Code. So we would like to empower all our partners with the tools they need. So now everyone has the ability to test their developed apps and also running the needed upgrade code. So it's not a big change, but at least it's good to know that Microsoft does everything to empower the partners to make their work and their investments for Business Central SaaS a success. Then restoring environments in the admin center. As you might know, Business Central SaaS runs on Azure SQL database, and that has a 30 days retention period. So you as an admin, you as a partner can restore an environment of your end customer at a certain point in time, 30 days back. Good to know that such an environment could only be restored within the same Business Central version. So if it was on 17.5, you can only restore it to 17.5. You can do it as a partner. The organization admin are able to do it, but you need to have a specific permission set, the Dynamics 365 backup and restore permission set. So if you want to make sure that some people are not able to do, simply don't assign those permission sets. There are some considerations and limitations. A very obvious one, it's only possible if you still have an active subscription. You can do it at maximum 10 times in a calendar month, which should be sufficient, because if you have to restore environments more than 10 times in a month, there's something else wrong, I suppose. You cannot restore deleted environments. if a environment for whatever reason has been deleted and it should be restored, then you need to contact Microsoft and they can try to get those environments back. The only thing is that at that moment they can't guarantee that everything will work properly afterwards. The restorements always need to be happen within the same Azure region, and a production environment can be restored both as production or as a sandbox. And it's good to know that if a sandbox has been restored, some things are missing. So the development extensions and some pretend extensions. So you need to install them manually afterwards. Also good to know, every app source app within that Business Central environment, which will be restored, will then have the latest version of that app installed. So it could be newer. So for example, if you're on Business Central 18, just a fictive example, you're on Business Central 18 with a ISV app version 1.0, and you restore that environment, but in the meantime, the ISV has uploaded their 2.0 version of that app, then you get a restored environment with Business Central 18 and the 2.0 version of that specific ISV app, because they basically restore the environment and install the apps back again from app source. And of course, always the latest version is available on app source. Then the last part I would like to cover, the very recent news. Microsoft announced the Business Central Publisher Program. It will launch later this year, and it's all about partners and ISVs having solutions for only on-prem, on-prem on cloud, or only at cloud. Microsoft wants to have that the situation that every ISV has a cloud-first strategy, because Microsoft wants to make sure that customers can find a solution for their Business Central SaaS environment. And so basically what this means is they say, okay, nowadays customers chose Business Central on-prem because they really depend or relying on a particular ISV solution which is only available on-prem. Microsoft wants to get rid of those situations. So basically Microsoft wants every customer to be able to choose Business Central SaaS because ISVs do have their solutions ready on app source. And basically they are going to push and require the publishers of those apps to do so. This will replace the Registered Solution Program and the CFMD, and details will follow later on, but for now I can share the following. They basically say, okay, publisher with a cloud-first strategy in place are set up for success. So basically, if you as a publisher already have your solution on app source available for Business Central SaaS, great, then everything is in place for success and no program fees or additional test efforts are required for you, outside of course the what is required for publishing on app source. But here comes the important part. From September 2022, publishers whose resellers have sold on-prem solutions to new customers without an equivalent cloud-based solution, so basically that solution is not available in app source for Business Central SaaS, will see fees from Microsoft. So basically you get a fee as a publisher because you don't have your solution available on app source for Business Central SaaS. Of course, that's only for countries where SaaS is available in the first place. And solutions registered for existing customers before this cutoff date, of course, will not be impacted by those program fees. And new non-app source solutions after those cutoff date will be impacted as well for those fees. So basically they say, okay, you as an ISV or you as a partner with some solutions, you really need to have your solution, which is nowadays available only for on-prem, on app source, and otherwise we are going to give you a fee. What do you need to do? Of course, how Microsoft tells the message, avoid fees by creating a transition plan now. The longer you wait, the more fees you will incur is basically what Microsoft is saying. And this change also means that publishers now have a shared responsibility with their resellers to only resell cloud-first solutions to new customers. So basically, it drops down to the summary. Microsoft wants to have the situation that every ISV and partner with solutions, that those solutions are available for Business Central SaaS and AppSource, because we need to have all the new customers on Business Central SaaS with all the required ISV solutions they really need to have in their environments. So there's no reason to purchase on-prem anymore. And of course, you can think further down the line which consequences it could have even more. But first, this is the really obvious one. And the new publisher program is designed to drive customer obsession behavior, not revenue, and promote a cloud-first strategy for publisher. And there's the objective. Our objective is to ensure customers can choose cloud deployments without exceptions. And it's just a normal sentence, but please keep the message behind it. Microsoft wants to have the situation that every new customer can choose Business Central SaaS because solutions are available for SaaS. And of course, it's quite a statement from Microsoft, especially they say, okay, from September 2022 and onward, you will get a fee if your solution is not available in cloud. But at least, like Microsoft already said, as an action point, create a transition plan now. So you are ready before this cutoff date so that your solutions are available on AppSource. If you need any help on coaching, or do you have questions on how should we do it, or can we create a plan on how to perform this transition or whatever, you can contact me, of course, no problem. But you could also contact our ISV lead, Herman van Leeuwen. His email address is on the slide, so if when this presentation is shared later on with you, you will have his contact information. So this was the recent news. Quite a statement from Microsoft, but it all has to do with the journey we are on. Microsoft wants to have Business Central SaaS ready for everyone. That's it from my side. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Chris.
Great. Thanks, William. Before we hand over to Chris, we have a couple of questions in the chat. One is from Sam. I find it strange that BC and Power App database storage is priced so differently, given that BC is now on Dataverse. It's with a question mark. Not sure if this is a question, William. Maybe only a remark. But we also have from Edwin a question: when will the new storage licensing be available?
The new storage license is available from starting from July. And the question regarding Dataverse, Business Central is not on Dataverse, like how Dynamics 365 for Sales, for example, is on Dataverse. Microsoft still, Business Central still has its own database. And of course, you can synchronize your data to Dataverse, and you are now able to create virtual tables for nearly every table which is available in Business Central as a virtual table in Dataverse. But to work with Dataverse, you still need to have the licenses which are applicable to Dataverse. And of course, if you have a Business Central license, some functionality of Power Apps and Dataverse is included, but that's a light version, I would call it, if you compare it to the actual dedicated license for the Power Platform.
Okay, cool.
And maybe Chris can clarify it even more clear, but if it's not yet. Are there more questions?
Okay, thanks. No, yes, there's one more from Brandon. Is the BC virtual table concept a replacement for standard Dynamics 365 CE integration capability?
No, it's not a replacement, at least yet, because like I showed in the example, you can still synchronize actually the data, for example, of the customer table in Business Central with the account table in Dataverse. That's an actual synchronization. But on top of that, or next to that, you now have the option to create virtual tables from other tables or entities in Business Central and integrate them that way in Dataverse. So it's not a replacement, at least yet.
Okay, clear. Thanks, William. If you have any question, please just put it in the chat functionality. But so far, those were all questions.
Okay.
Thanks, William. Hand over to Chris.
Wonderful, thank you. Can I just check that you can hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Excellent. And thank you, William, for the excellent update there. Lots of questions when it comes to virtual tables around Dataverse, around Business Central integration. I'll come back to that towards the end of my session here today. It's very brief. It's been quite quiet on the recent announcements front from a Power Platform and a Dynamics 365 workload perspective, those other than Business Central through the month of April. I think sometimes no news is good news, and similar to last month, if you look at the licensing guides for both Power Platform and Dynamics 365 workloads that relate to CRM, there's very little change in there. There's nothing worth mentioning, nothing to specifically note. So the first update this month is that there is no real update on licensing. That's always a positive thing when things stay consistent month on month. I would like to cover today just a little bit of the Wave 2021 updates on field service, two particular things that I've kind of spotted and would like to share. This obviously complements the pieces that we did last month around federated knowledge search in customer service. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit around some of the capabilities in field service that are new to kind of Wave 2021 and in preview. And this one is probably long overdue for those that already know the field service application. It has a new technician tracking piece, and we all know the challenges here. You can often think about when you're sat at home waiting and you've been promised a visit by an engineer or somebody in a field service role. And let's just say, you know, the organization decides to tell you that they'll be arriving anytime between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. And it doesn't really give you much flexibility to work the rest of your day around their availability. Obviously, during COVID times, when we've all been at home, this has been much less of an issue. However, as the world starts to reopen, as people start to get busy and hopefully become much more mobile again, even importantly from the business side, they want to know that their customers are going to be ready and available when the technician arrives. You know, you don't want to have wasted trips due to customer unavailability. So this real-time location tracking piece will become available while the technician is en route, and that should really help customers plan their day better around service visits. So this is part of, or will become part of, Dynamics 365 field service automation. So there are a few things here worth highlighting. There's an automated service schedule which sends reminders and notifications of any time changes to customers. That can be done via email or via SMS text message. Obviously, on the day of service, you can send out notifications, or you can automate the sending of notifications informing customers of technicians' estimated arrival time. And then you get the ability, as the screenshot kind of shows there, to track the technician's progress to the destination in real time. Being a US example and a Seattle-based company, the map there clearly shows the duration, the time, the distance away. The interface is hosted on Power Apps portals, and the customer can access that from any device. So obviously Microsoft embracing Android, iOS, and the flexibility across all devices, as has previously been the case more recently than it was before. The second piece that I want to cover is tied back into that as well, and that's around self-service scheduling. So, the ability for us as consumers, when we are dealing with organizations that are implementing field service type capabilities for their service workforce, the great thing here is that as a customer, you can now go and self-serve scheduling appointments through, again, Power Apps portals, and again from any device with the kind of the customer interface or the customer focused interface there. There's a few specific things here to call out as well. It's not kind of turned on by default for all customers and for all engineers. It basically, as an organization, you need to issue a direct invitation to a customer to schedule said appointment. And once you've got that direct link, you can then basically see real-time resource availability, location, maybe even skill set, if that's something as an organization you wanted to share. And that then offers available time slots to help customers schedule. So as well as the tracking of the agents on the day, this self-service scheduling piece is also being driven and hosted via Power Apps portals. I think two other things worth mentioning is the brand and the capability there. Because this is portals, you can have the theme applied to match your own company style, making sure you've got the consistent look and feel that you would want to present to your end customers. And then also you can use the interface to collect pre-service customer information. So as part of the scheduling request, maybe accessibility is an issue. Maybe you're in a 10th floor apartment and there is heavy equipment that needs to be brought in. All of those types of things, those questions can be asked around the self-service scheduling engine. So those were two other things that I wanted to highlight. And I think perhaps importantly here also as partners, it's worth mentioning that you potentially have internal use rights for many dynamic systems. Field service automation is not something that comes as standard. So it's also worth checking the microsoftdemos.com and the Microsoft Demos websites for scripts and things around these things moving forwards if they are of interest to your customers. Again, it's kind of showing how Microsoft are taking Power Apps and Power Apps portals to the next level in their first-party apps. To come back to the thing that William mentioned before, and this is a special interest group that I advertised last month. The first one of these is happening tomorrow. And when it comes down to integrating Business Central with Dataverse, and when it comes down to the licensing implications and what is possible and what isn't possible, the complexities of all of those things, we've decided to set up a separate forum here. And it's not just targeted at Business Central partners. This is targeted at all Dynamics partners and all Dynamics workloads. We have a very clear agenda for this call tomorrow. We have an executive update from our CEO, Michael Hartman. We're going to cover an introduction to Dataverse, an introduction to model-driven apps, to Canvas-driven apps, and what that basically means from a conceptual point of view. So from a lower level kind of technology, if we're talking about Dataverse or Common Data Service as it was, and we're talking about the difference between a model-driven app and a Canvas app, and you don't know these things, then we'd be in a great position to share that with you tomorrow. We also have basically then a partner showcase around making it real, where we're going to show a model-driven app that one of our partners has created that will enable you to understand the types of things that model-driven apps can do from a business process flow, from a Power Automate perspective. And then we have a much more technical, in-depth session from our CTO, Michelle van den Brink, around all of the Wave 1 enhancements from Power Platform and Dynamics 365 workloads outside of the scope of Business Central. So if those things are top of mind for you, we would love to have you in that call tomorrow. and we would love you to ask the pertinent questions there, where I have much more significant technical backup and much more licensing backup to help with the specifics of things that may be very, very important to you as Business Central partners, or just Dynamics 365 partners in general. So that's it for me today for closing. It says 3 p.m. there on the slide. That's 2 p.m. UK time. We're obviously an hour behind from a time zone perspective. And I don't believe we have an ISV today, Ursula, for me to hand over to. So I think we're at the point of close unless there's any questions.
Yes, thanks. No ISV slot today. We have one question from Brandon. Wave 1 initially had the comment that RSO being available for every field service organization, which I think has now been moved to later wave. Do we anticipate RSO licensing will become free of charge?
I'm going to be honest and say I do not know the answer to that question, Brendan. I'll do some digging and I will get back to you as soon as possible. If you want to drop me a separate note, cparkes, CPARKES @qbsgroup.com, and I can pick that up with you just offline from this forum.
Very good. Thanks, Chris. Thanks all for great questions. I have put the link for registering for the event for tomorrow, which was just mentioned by Chris also in the chat. So maybe we talk to each other tomorrow. For now, it's yeah. Thanks for joining. It was a pleasure having you here in this webcast. Thanks, Will and Chris, for the great update. And we wish you a very nice rest of the day, and see you tomorrow or in the next webcast. Bye-bye.